Welcome back to Football Daily, where we're getting into the festive spirit by looking at 10 managers who will never work again, at least not in Europe's top 5 leagues. Remember, if you disagree with any of our suggestions, let us know down in the comments, and the most liked one might just appear on Sunday Vibes. Let's go. 10. Alex McLeish. Back during the 1990s and early 2000s, Alex McLeish had built his reputation as one of Scottish football's best managerial prospects. In 1995, as a 36-year-old, he led Motherwell to second spot in the SPL, their highest finish since 1934, before taking Hibernian from the second tier to third place and a cup final between 1998 and 2001. Then came national success with Rangers, winning 7 trophies between 2001 and 2006, and taking Scotland to the cusp of qualification for Euro 2008, including victory over France, before finally making his bow in the English game with Birmingham City. However, he's failed to replicate the same success south of the border. He may have won a League Cup with the Blues in 2011, but failed to impress in stints with Aston Villa, Nottingham Forest, Belgian side Genk, and Egyptian giant Zamalek. A surprise reappointment as Scotland manager in 2018, 2 years after his last job, things went exactly as you might expect, lasting just 12 games before a 3-0 defeat to Kazakhstan saw McLeish sacked. Unemployed since mid-2019, it's hard to see anyone bringing the 62-year-old back to the dugout. 9. Laurent Blanc. He might have been linked with the Manchester United job after former teammate Ole Gunnar Solskjaer finally got the chop, but that marked the first time in half a decade that Laurent Blanc seemed to be a legitimate contender for a top role. The Frenchman managed Bordeaux from 2007 to 2010, ending Lyon's domestic dominance with a Ligue 1 title in 2009, before taking over as the French national team manager in the wake of a disastrous 2010 World Cup, although he'd only be in the job for 1 tournament cycle. Then followed 3 successful campaigns with PSG, winning 11 of 12 possible domestic trophies. But since 2016, it's been a little quiet. Blanc was let go after failing to leave his mark on the continent, reportedly receiving a €22 million payoff. So was it really that surprising that the 56-year-old decided to take a step back from management? Blanc would return in December 2020, taking over at Qatari club Al Rayyan, but by deciding to take a job in that part of the world, coupled with just 14 wins from 39 fixtures, it means he's likely turned his back on a more prominent role in Europe. 8. Andre Villas-Boas. It might be a bit of a stretch to suggest that Andre Villas-Boas' time as a top-level coach is over, and I personally adore him. After all, he is still somehow just 44 years old, achieving success early on with Porto. However, his meteoric rise and reputation seems to have preceded him, with his only trophies since leaving his homeland coming in Russia. AVB lasted just 9 months at Stamford Bridge, and his time across London at Spurs was equally disappointing, missing out on Champions League football and being let go less than halfway into a 3-year deal. After stints in Russia and China, in 2017 it appeared Villas-Boas was taking a step back to pursue motorsport, bringing into question his dedication to football. He did, however, return to Marseille 2 years later, although left after a rather public spat with the club board, and almost a year on from that, Villas-Boas doesn't seem to be in the running for any jobs at all. As he's shown before, it's not unusual for managers to take some time away from the game and evaluate their decisions and life choices. So given time, hopefully he can find the right job for himself. We're just not quite sure that will be in Europe. But do you agree? Let us know in the comments down below. 7. Sam Allardyce. We might be coming towards the end of 2021, but somehow Sam Allardyce is still managing to keep himself relevant. He might not have had a job since failing to keep West Bromwich Albion up last season, resigning despite the Baggies wanting to keep him on, but as this year's relegation candidates Norwich and Newcastle sacked their coaches, the shouts for the 67-year-old to take charge weren't entirely ironic. However, both clubs resisted that urge, and it will take an absolute disaster for another club to go near Allardyce, who hasn't managed outside the Premier League since taking over at relegated West Ham a decade ago. He may have been described as a genius by Pep Guardiola for his firefighting ability, but nowadays clubs usually look for a bit more long term. Despite saving 4 clubs from impending doom in the top flight, or 5 if you include Everton, the fact he hasn't been seriously considered for one of the 4 realistic jobs that have come available this campaign suggests he won't be parachuted in as a saviour, be that this season or any time in the foreseeable future. 6. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. After almost 3 years and 168 matches, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's luck on the touchline at Old Trafford ran out following a devastating 4-1 defeat to Watford. Say what you want, the fact the Norwegian stayed in charge for so long is testament to his underappreciated coaching skills and man management. He finished with a 54% win rate and a Europa League runners-up medal, though arguably his greatest achievement was restoring a harmony and identity at Manchester United that has been largely absent in the post-Ferguson era. Sadly, Solskjaer lacked the ruthlessness needed to win major major honours, infamously falling at the semi-final stage of 3 different competitions in 2019-20. The heavy influx of world-class managerial talent into the Premier League only made his job tougher, and you can forgive the United hierarchy for looking elsewhere as they look to keep pace with England's elite. Ole performed amazingly well for a manager with only Norwegian major honours on his CV, and a return to his homeland might be a sensible choice for the 48-year-old. Europe's major leagues look beyond him for now. 5. Oscar Tabarez. If you thought Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's goodbye interview at Manchester United was an emotional ordeal, spare a moment for the people of Uruguay, who last month said farewell to the longest serving manager in their history. Oscar Tabarez, simply known as El Maestro, led the South Americans for a record 228 games across 17.5 years. First hired by La Celeste in 1988, Tabarez coached at the likes of Boca Juniors, Cagliari and AC Milan before returning to the Uruguayan national side in 2006. Under the Montevideano, Uruguay competed in 7 Copa Americas, winning the title in 2011, while also playing in 4 World Cups, reaching the semi-finals in 2010. Sadly, a 3-0 loss to Bolivia during a troubled campaign to reach Qatar 2022 ultimately cost him his job. It's worth remembering that Uruguay are a small nation of just 3.5 million people, yet Tabarez evolved their youth systems to ensure a constant stream of quality talent, while also reinvigorating the notion of Garra Charrua, the national team fighting spirit that highlights the importance of tenacity with skill. Now 74, Tabarez is a legend with nothing else to prove, and we wish him all the best. 4. Luiz Felipe Scolari. There is no doubting that Luiz Felipe Scolari is one of the biggest managerial icons in his native Brazil, but despite his legacy, it's unlikely we'll ever see him managing at the top level again. Now in the dugout for 39 years, Big Phil has had 29 jobs, including 2 stints in charge of Brazil, 6 years with Portugal, and coaching basically every big club in his homeland. The 2002 World Cup winner saw his reputation tarnished whilst at Chelsea, lasting barely 6 months in the role before being sacked in 2009. Another stain on his record is of course the 7-1 defeat to Germany in the 2014 World Cup semi-final, and since then the 73-year-old has been on football's periphery. Scolari might have won 7 trophies with Guangzhou Evergrande between 2015 and 2017, but it appears his career is finally coming to a close. Despite a bright start at Palmeiras in 2018, he'd last just over a year before being sacked, and has won just 18 games out of a possible 42 at the helm of Cruzeiro and Grêmio, leaving the latter in October. Currently unemployed, it looks like Brazilian football is ready to move on without Big Phil. 3. Cesare Prandelli. Contrary to most names on this list, Cesare Prandelli has made the conscious decision to step away from football, and frankly, it would be a surprise if he ever returns. He made his name at Fiorentina, whom he joined in 2005 after working his way up through the Italian pyramid, transforming La Viola from relegation candidates to Champions League qualifiers in just 1 season. Prandelli would go on to manage Italy between 2010 and 2014, leading the Azzurri to the Euro 2012 final, although he left under the cloud that was the 2014 World Cup. Since then, his career has stagnated somewhat, managing a total of 45 matches in Turkey, Spain and the UAE before returning to Italy. But he'd spend less than a season in charge of Genoa and spent a year out of the game before rejoining Fiorentina in November 2020. 4 months later though, Prandelli made his announcement that he was leaving the club, stating, "I've been going through a period of profound distress, and a dark cloud has developed inside of me. First and foremost, we wish him well, and if this is the end of Prandelli's career, we'll be sure he'll be fondly remembered by the people of Florence." 2. Eusebio Di Francesco. Having established himself as one to watch with Sassuolo and Roma, where he famously overturned a 4-1 deficit to Barcelona in the Champions League, the Italian has since tumbled from disaster to disaster. First came an 8-game stint with Sampdoria in 2019, which collapsed after 6 defeats. At Cagliari, he survived a little longer, but was removed following 5 wins in 26. A dismal 19.2% win rate should have put off any future suitors, yet Hellas Verona still gave him a shot at redemption ahead of the current campaign. Sadly for Di Francesco, his nightmare continued. The 52-year-old was sacked after merely 3 league games, with EG Yellow Blue losing on each occasion. This decision seemed pretty harsh, with expected points and XG against suggesting Hellas were unfortunate to have shipped 7 goals and lie 19th in the table. But after a wretched 24 months, it's hardly surprising the owners pulled the trigger so early. Di Francesco simply cannot coach a defence. In his past 3 jobs, his sides have conceded on average 1.8 goals a game, and unless he fixes that issue soon, it will be a miracle if another club touches him again. 1. Steve Bruce. After his sacking as Newcastle United manager following the takeover at St James's Park, it could well have signalled the end of Steve Bruce's career. And, to some people's surprise, this sacking wasn't immediate. He remained in charge for the Magpies' 3-2 defeat to Spurs, which marked his 1,000th game as a manager, becoming the 34th person in English football to reach this historic milestone. Brucey's major breakthrough as a manager came with Birmingham City, whom he led between 2001 and 2007, managing promotion to the Premier League twice and ironically choosing to stay at St Andrews over a switch to Newcastle in both 2004 and 2006. When he finally did leave Birmingham, Wigan Athletic had to pay a then world record compensation fee of £3 million to acquire him. Just think about that now. In his later jobs, his reputation started to precede him, and he was often tasked with trying to get sides promoted. 11 teams and 23 years after his managerial debut of Sheffield United, even Bruce has admitted this could be him finished, calling the Newcastle job very, very tough. All in all though, 1,000 games as a manager deserves a huge amount of respect. So that was 10 managers we reckon will never work again in a top European league. Where do you agree? Where do you disagree? Let us know in the comments down below. Make sure you're liked and subscribed to Football Daily with that notification bell switched on, and we'll see you next time.